Hi, welcome to yet another camper conversion video. This is our Volkswagen T4 and I watched quite a few camper conversions over the years, and I thought it might be nice to show the way we did it and hopefully it will be useful to someone. As I said, this is a T4 from year 2000. It has probably 400,000 kilometers on the clock and we paid 3,500 euros for it. Plus another 1,000 or so was for the repairs. Few things had to be changed, few rust spots had to be addressed, but other than that the car works really well. And we are going to now rewind to the past and have a look at how I did the insulation, the floor, the bed/sofa, as well as the electrical stuff. I actually did the conversion kind of on the last minute because I was getting the car ready for a trip. So I'm not going to show everything in detail, but I will make sure to explain everything important as well as I can. So this is the back of our car, and as you can see there are many gaps right here, especially at the bottom, which will be later covered with insulation. I would definitely want to protect them from rust, and there's just no way to get in there and paint it. So the best option to prevent rust is something like this. It's a conservation wax. So you just take this can and just spray it everywhere in these gaps where you wouldn't be able to get normally. It's really good to do this on a hot day, which is right now. It's kind of middle of the summer, because the whole car is warm. I had this can on the sun, sitting on the sun, so it's warm as well. The wax is just going to soar to every little crack and fill up every gap, so it should protect the car really nicely. So this is the sound insulation I'm going to be using. This should dampen any vibrations and make the car much more silent. So first of all, I'm going to clean this thoroughly with some brake cleaner so that it can stick to it really nicely. What I'm using to apply it is this kind of a tool. You can buy this obviously. I've made this myself. This is just a steel cylinder and it just helps you to push it down really nicely so that it holds. It's really good to do this in summer because this material, it's like a bitumen with some aluminum. It gets softer obviously when it's warm, so it's really nice to work with in the summer. And then you've got these corners where you can't really get with a roller. So what I done is I just use a flathead screwdriver and just pushed it really in so that it sticks everywhere. Alright, so I'm using this aluminum tape and I'm nicely going to cover all of the seams because there is this asphalt filler which is just pressed out, and when I'm putting the heat insulation on top it just wouldn't stuck on those places, so I'm just going to cover it with the tape and we'll be good to go. So right now I'm just going to take the heat insulation and put it on the wheel arches as well. Then I'm going to work on the floor. For the heat insulation I'm using material called K-Flex. It has this black layer, which is the actual insulation. It has the aluminum layer here on top, which is going to reflect the heat, and adhesive layer on the bottom. So you just take it and stick it to whatever surface you want, and that's what I'm going to use for the whole car. This is the 10mm version. They do as thin as 6mm and as thick as 20 or 25, I think. But I've just decided to go for a very thin one. I don't plan sleeping in some extreme conditions, so I think this should be good enough. Alright, so these pieces of plywood are kind of supports for the actual floor. They are from the same material, which is water resistant 9mm plywood, and I'm going to use some construction adhesive to hold them down to the flooring, and the floor is then going to go on top of that. Now I'm using a 25cm, so 250mm space in between, and I'm obviously going to put some insulation, sound as well as heat insulation underneath, and then cover it with the floor. Alright, so I've got this wooden support here, and this is how it fits in place. So it's nice and supported, can be glued, and should hold nicely. So right now I'm going to glue the supports in place. I'm going to use a construction adhesive. It's called Sikaflex 118, and it should hold it really securely. I'm going to put a droplet on each of these, on the top of each of these waves, and it should hold. Now the supports are done, so it's time to put on the sound insulation. I'm going to put it on the entire floor, and then we're going to put the proper thermal insulation on top. Alright, so this is gonna be our floor. I just mapped out the first part, and now I'm going to take a jigsaw and do all of the cutouts for wheel arches and things like that, so that it nicely fits in. I'm gonna be using 2 of these because the car is wider than the original width of the plywood. So I'm going to cut it out of 2 pieces and connect it on one side so that it's nicely covered with the cupboards. Now this is actually the floor that was in the van when we bought it, and it fits pretty good, so I will actually use it, trace it out, modify it a little bit on a few places. Alright, so I test fitted the floor and I used this center punch to basically trace out the entrance section, and I've got this nice trace here which I'm now going to offset by the radius of this tool so that it's nicely lined up, hopefully. And then I'm just going to cut it out with the jigsaw. And I'm probably going to take some tape and put it underneath to mitigate any kind of tear that might occur otherwise, because this side is actually going to be quite visible, so I want to make it as pretty as possible. I've got the vibration dampening panels on this front section here, and the difference is quite significant. I mean, when I knock here, and when I knock here, it's a huge difference actually, just from two tiny panels. So yeah, I'm quite impressed. I mean, I expected it to work, but seems to work really well actually. So yeah, I'm gonna continue on, put it everywhere, and then the heat insulation is gonna go on. Get all of the sound insulation done, and then I ran all of the electrical cables throughout the car. I've tried to use the existing hose as much as possible, but I actually had to drill a couple of holes here and at the back in order to get the cables to the ceiling. As you can see, I've got all of my cables labeled so that I know where everything is once it's time to plug it in. So I think we now should be ready to put the heat insulation down. I did it in this order because I want to put the heat insulation in and leave the cables on top of it at places. It's not really necessary, but I think it's kind of nice if I ever need to change anything for whatever reason. I'm gonna have easy access to the cables, so I'm probably just going to put them over it and then just use some aluminum tape to stick them to the top of the insulation. So this is how the inside looks at the moment. This is our bed slash sofa. We've got 2 drawers here and 2 drawers at the back, and on the other side here there is our leisure battery. And basically the way you convert this into a bed at the moment is you use legs, which you just screw in here. You've got these 2 separate boards, and you simply screw some legs into them and flip them around, and voila, you've got a bed which has 2 meters long and 1.2 meters wide. Perfectly fine for 2 people, and it's really simple and really quick to set up. And we are using this off-the-shelf mattress. It's split into 3 parts, and it's exactly 120 millimeters wide and 2 meters long, same as the bed. And because it splits in 3 parts, it's really easy to manipulate in such a tiny space, so I would definitely recommend this. Now the drawers are using these simple push lock latching mechanisms. This is definitely a must, because if you don't have that, your drawers will just fly open. So let's now talk a little bit about the electrical stuff. To actually get the electricity, we've got 2 sources. First is a solar panel on the roof. It's 175 watts. And the second one is the engine actually. So we've got a relay at front, so when the main battery is fully charged, it starts automatically charging the leisure battery. The leisure battery is hidden underneath the bed right here, and it's 140 amp hour battery, so plenty big enough. Now when you are using a solar panel, you obviously need a controller for the charging. So both the solar panel and the controller are Victron Energy, and I'm really happy with that. It works very well. You can even connect to the controller via Bluetooth and see how much you are charging in real time, as well as some statistical data. Then we've got a power converter. This is only a 300 watt version, a really tiny one, but all we really need it for is charging our laptops, so this is plenty big enough. And then we've got a few USB spots for charging our phones, and then a few lights, and that's pretty much it for now. In the box right here is a diesel heater, which is actually not installed yet, but we are going to install it, and it's going to consume some electricity as well. So that's pretty much it for today. I mean, the car at the moment still needs a lot of work. I mean, it's fully usable, you can sleep in it and everything, but we have to make it pretty. We are going to add a window here. We need to cover all of the walls with plywood. We need to add a kitchen here, and we need to add a swivel seat. I'm probably going to shoot another video about all of these things. Alright, that's pretty much it for today. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll try to help, and thank you so much for watching.